Hey, how you guys doing? This is Franklin Cruz. So I want to share with you something super personal. My first deal I ever did. Now, I know this is a super long time ago and it probably ages me a bit, but way back when in 2000, I actually did my very first deal. I'll never forget this deal. So this is one of those stories that you got to get some popcorn, get some hot cocoa, and just sit by the fire and listen to this one. So the story is of 6614 Mascot. Now at 6614 Mascot, now remember back in 2000 I was in the military and I had a dream of getting out and being a full-time real estate investor. So what happened is I was laying in about 2 o'clock in the morning, and at 2 o'clock in the morning I saw this infomercial come on. And in this infomercial what happened was this guy looked at me and he pointed at me. He had this mustache on and a crew cut, and he was wearing super short shorts with hairy legs. Very nasty, but it's okay. Ew. And so it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm staring at the TV and he says, "Hey, you." And I'm like, "Who, me?" Right? And he says, "Hey, you. I'm going to be in your town and I'm going to teach you how to be a real estate investor, a full-time one, and make millions of dollars." And I could see the ocean and the boats behind him. And I was like, oh my goodness, he's pointing at me. He's telling me to be there. He's like, "I'm going to be in your town one night or one day and one day only. So obviously I need to go." So I did go, and he said it was a free event. So at the free event, I spent $3,500 at this free event. I'll let you catch on to that one. So after I spent $3,500 at this free event, I was like, yes, I could do this. So everybody there, they were talking about at that workshop, they said, hey, you can actually do deals. And so me in the military, I was like, man, I can do deals, I can do deals. Now remember, $3,500 for me at that time was like 3 months of my check. That was everything I had, plus some. And please don't tell anybody that I actually used a credit card that it wasn't really mine, but I had to borrow it. But it's fine, we don't need to talk about the past. But what I'm trying to get at is I didn't have the money, but I went and I took that risk. And they said, look, you could actually get on the phone and do deals with people. So I'll never forget, I was looking through the newspaper and I saw this one ad that said, good deal, 6614 Mascot, diamond in the rough. So I call it up and I said, hey man, tell me about this deal. You know, is it a good deal? He said, obviously, I would have never wrote it. It's a good deal. And I said, perfect. So tell me about the property. He told me about the property. He said, man, that's awesome. He said, are you pre-qualified? I said, obviously, I wouldn't be calling you if I wasn't pre-qualified. I didn't know what the hell that meant, right? Because at the workshop, I also bought this $1,000 book because that's the only thing I could afford. They had $1,000 and they had $50,000 mentorship. I thought the $1,000 book would work. So I bought this $1,000 book. And I'll never forget, at the $1,000 book, now remember, I already called this guy about Mascot, and at the $1,000 book, on chapter 1, it talked about that you could actually close deals by getting a contract. So the first thing I learned was how to get a contract. So I was like, all right, I can do that. So I filled out the contract, I sent it in, didn't really know what the hell I was doing, and I sent it in to him. He said, perfect, it's $76,000, it needs some work. It was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath property. Okay, it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath property with a 1-car garage. So what I decided to do is I got it under contract. Now, the first thing I did is in chapter 2, what it talked about was it said go to RIA groups. So I started going to RIA groups and it said go pitch your property and probably you could actually wholesale it out. That's exactly what I did. I went to a RIA group and I stood up in uniform because obviously uniform looks good. I didn't really have a pocket square at that time, but it looked good. So I stood up and I said, hey, I've got a property for sale, 6614 Mascot. I got it right now for X amount of dollars, but it's worth, I had a copy of the appraisal in hand, and you could do that too, have a copy of the appraisal, so whenever you wholesale something, I had a copy of the appraisal in hand, and then I said, look, anybody want to, I'll wholesale it right now. And this guy, Reggie, stood up. Like he was almost glowing. That's how he looked to me. And he stood up, he says, hey son, I'm interested in your property. He said, I'll give you $5,000 right now. So I was like, oh my goodness, I went to chapter 3. Chapter 3 talked about like I can make money assigning this deal, right? I'm wholesaling, I'm assigning it to somebody. So obviously what I did right there, I called the smartest person I know in real estate investing, my mentor, the mentor to so many people. I called my dad, who's done a lot of deals. One deal in his entire life, and that was his own house, right? So I called my dad up. I said, Dad, what do you think about this deal, man? I'm thinking about doing it. He said, how much is he gonna give you? He said, he's gonna give me $5,000, Dad. That's 5 months of a check for me at that time. And I was like, man, I could do this. My dad said, well, how much could you make if you rehabbed it? I said, man, Dad, you're right. I could probably make like $30,000. He's like, son, oh no, I wouldn't do that deal. So I went back inside and I said, hey, Reggie, what are you doing, Reggie? You're trying to screw me. I said, I could make all this money, Reggie. I don't appreciate you. No deal. I don't want your $5,000. He said, son, are you sure? I said, Reggie, excuse me, you're trying to screw me. Bye. So I left. It's the first time I could have made money. Okay, so right there, I could have made $5,000, not do any kind of work. And I said no. Now, I get into the rehab. And I'm starting to do the rehab. I bought the property. I closed on it. And I started using, in chapter 4, it said you could use credit cards to actually close the, like to do the rehab. So again, here's another lesson. You could use credit cards to actually do this. So I was like, obviously that's what I'm gonna do because that's what chapter 4 says. So I start going in there in chapter 4, I started using credit cards. The only catch is I didn't have that much money. So I started digging into all my accounts. And what I did was, because on chapter 5, it talked about that you could take a 4-bedroom house, and what you should do, the best house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, right? So what I did is I took a 4-bedroom, 2-bath with a 1-car garage, and I made it a 3-bedroom, I made it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a carport. Yes, it makes no sense at all, but that's exactly what I did. So I screwed up the entire house because that's what I thought was the right thing to do, because on chapter 4, that's what it talked about. So now somebody comes up to me and they said, hey, we're interested in your property, because I had a for rent sign on the property. Or actually, no, I put a for sale sign. I'm sorry, I put a for sale sign. So somebody came up to me and they were in the military and they said, look, I'll pay you $1,500 a month. And also I'll give you $5,000 down. Frankly, I want to do a lease option. Now, so I go to the book, can't find no chapters on lease option. I do find a chapter on rent to own, but I don't find anything about lease option. So I go to the lady, I said, now remember, my mortgage on that property is $500. She's offering me $1,500. That's about $1,000 profit every single month, including $5,000 down. So I go up to the lady and I let her know, I said, excuse me, ma'am, you're trying to screw me because that is not inside my book, and so I'm a no deal. Thank you, ma'am. Bye. So now, potential, let's say potential profit, 500 times this, so right off the back I'm at, let's just say I'm at $6,000 profit plus 5,000. So right there I walked away from $11,000 profit right off the bat. I would never have to pay. Matter of fact, I could have still had the property if I walked away from it. Because, remember, rent to own and lease option are basically the same thing. I just didn't understand the terminology. Okay? Third thing. So third thing happened is this. So now I'm doing this deal. I finished the property. I'm done. I put a realtor sign outside. You know, or for sale sign. Lady comes up to me and says, hey, Frank, I want this property. I said, awesome. This is how much it's for sale. So she comes up, she's like, hey, you know, can we negotiate? I said, obviously. So I go to the book. And I remember in chapter 7, it talks about negotiations. That you could pay for somebody's closing cost. So I was like, obviously, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Fine, I'll pay all your closing costs, no problem. I never did any of the math. I had no idea what the hell closing costs were. Matter of fact, so I said, all right, fine, I'll do the deal. So now I'm at closing. Here's another lesson I learned. I'm at closing. And I'm closing on this deal. I'm like, yes, I got this. I'm closing. I'm doing it. Lady comes up to me, the closing agent at the title company. And she said, hey, excuse me, sir, we're going to need a check. And I said, for how much? She said, we're going to need a check. I believe at the time was $7,500. So I said, $7,500? Are you kidding me? She's like, no, we're not kidding. So I said, fine. So I go inside, I go get one of my credit cards, and the credit cards, they write you checks, right? They give you these checks for the credit card. So I wrote a check off of a credit card, and I paid her. But what happened is now, So remember this, I'm negative now, 6,500, okay? I was negative on the rehab, right there, 11,000. So I'm negative on my very first deal, about $17,500 on my very first deal. See, what I didn't know is that you don't have to close at the closing table if you don't feel comfortable. You could walk away if you choose to. I didn't know that. I had no clue that you could do that. So the principle of this story is this. This was my first deal in real estate. I was still in the military part-time. I lost my entire life savings. I lost everything that you could possibly think of. And I was negative 17,500. Now here's the positive about it. The positive about losing all that money is it gave me the motivation to actually say, I want to be a full-time real estate investor. I want to be in full-time, I want to be an entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that I thought of that could recreate that money legally was real estate investing. But I had to learn about it and I had to push myself. So remember, let's recap. I could have signed a deal for $5,000. I said no. Could have done a lease option, made $11,000 through time, if not more. I could have not closed on this deal. There's so many avenues I could have made money, but I didn't know. And the main reason why is I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody that I could lean on and say, hey, is this the right thing to do? I didn't have any of that. But I want to share with you, negative $17,500. But over 18 years later, coming on 18 years next year, 18 years, I'm still in the game. Because I never quit. Never quit at all, and I kept on pushing forward. I just said, yes, I got it. Negative 17,500. Just got to make that up. So hopefully this encourages you. That I'm pretty sure on your first deal, were you negative 17,500 or negative, or were you positive? Or did you reinvest it? I look at this as, this was a $17,000, $500 class on real estate investing. Talk to you guys later. Let me know exactly what you got out of this. Like and share it. If you got something really great out of this, share it. If you got something like, then like it. Talk to you guys later. Bye.